The USS Valiant's first taste of battle was a Cardassian battlecruiser near El Gatark. Joseph Sisko still calls Luna the Moon, and the Jem'Hadar ship's primary support braces are made of vivarium, so, you know. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 22, Valiant, written by Ronald D. Moore, directed by Michael Vehar. The date was May 8th, 1998. Where were you? We are joined by Malissa Longo. It's a Nog episode, everybody.
Hi.
Even better than that,
Yay.
It is a Jake and Nog episode, you guys. We've done it.
Yeah, we were due for a Jake and Nog episode, and I think this was a really good one.
Oh yes. So we're going to talk all about it. Malissa Longo has her Walking Art Made by Melissa.com shirt on. It's a Captain Picard shirt that says "Make it so." And you can get yours at walkingartmadebymelissa.com. In the description box below, there is the link. Cirroc has his Abyssinian kiosk mug that I spied a second ago.
Oh yeah, I have my mug. I have my Star Trek shirt on.
Very nice.
And, yeah, we're in the game.
So get that mug at abyssiniankiosk.com. That's Cirroc's sister's website. Also, we want to give at the top a very special thanks to Thomas Webster. Thank you, Thomas. Let's talk about Valiant. You just muted yourself. Sorry, Cirroc.
Oh, you're still on mute.
you're muted. Yeah, you're muted.
Yeah,
that's too bad
sorry
because
about
you
that.
looked like you were saying something really interesting, and we're like, I want to hear it.
No, I'm. I got in a little discussion there. Sorry about that, but no, we were talking about Valiant. I mean, this is an episode that I remember because it's towards the later end of when we were filming. So, right, this is Season 6, Episode 22, and at this point, you know, I'm kind of gotten to my full growth. I've kind of gone through my growth spurt, and I've settled into this frame. And so that's one of the good things about watching this episode, because I remember it quite vividly, and the co-stars and everybody that they brought in for this episode. Really? Yeah.
So, do you remember Courtney Peldon? She played the commander. I forgot the commander's name. Karen something. Commander Karen. But she ended up later on being a talent agent, right? For Aqua Talent, if you've ever heard of Aqua Talent.
No, I had no idea about that.
Represents a lot of people.
She's the one that is alive at the end that escapes in the shuttle pod. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, the commander, the second in charge, the blonde lady.
Okay.
Number one.
Oh, the number one on the show. Yeah, she was very nice. Actually, I was really impressed with all of them. They were all brought in as guest stars. They all kind of, this was their first kind of go around with this whole Star Trek language, being a part of Starfleet. Obviously, they're young, so they had no kind of military or any kind of experience in that realm. So they were really going off of whatever knowledge that they had, whatever research that they put into these characters, and whatever direction they were given by directors or producers. So what they ended up doing, I thought, was really good. I liked the energy that they brought. I thought that they had the whole Starfleet kind of dialogue kind of down packed.
Yeah.
They really were smooth with that. What did you guys think?
Melissa? Melissa didn't watch the episode. You can say it. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
She watched it. She watched it.
I remember when I first watched this years ago being so annoyed by this episode.
Really?
I
Okay,
was
this I want to
so
hear.
angry. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, okay. And I was I kind of had the same feelings this go around too, as far as my feelings towards my annoyance towards the crew, the cadets of the Valiant, because that's really what they were, cadets.
Yeah.
You know, arrogant cadets who thought they knew everything and had all the answers when they didn't have they had neither the experience or the wisdom to take on the actions that they put upon themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess we're just going to get right into it. Melissa's like, I'm not going to pull any punches. I'm going to dive right in. So I'm going to say something that maybe seems a little weird, but I thought this was a great episode. I remember liking it very much when I first saw it way back in the day, and then watching it again, I liked it very much. And the reason I liked it very much was because of how realistic it felt. What it is the fearlessness and impetuousness of youth. You know, we've all been that teenager or that 20-year-old that's really feeling himself or feeling herself, that just thinks, hey, I'm the greatest. Nothing's going to happen to me. You know, we all think my body's going to be perfect forever when we're 20 years old. You know, everybody thinks my body's going to be perfect forever. And we're fearless. And I think this episode demonstrates something that I'm always kind of looking at, which is the difference between bravery and fearlessness. I believe that these cadets were fearless, not necessarily brave, because they did not really know fear. And a lot of times we don't actually truly know fear until we're much older in life, because we have less to lose. You know, as a child, when you're skateboarding at 7 on a half pipe, you're not worried about getting hurt because it just doesn't enter your brain. You know, when you're playing football, when you're diving for things, you're doing all kinds of stupid stuff. When you get older, you're a lot more fearful because you know all the stuff that can happen and you have so much more to lose. I might miss work. I got to support my kids. There's all these other things that enter in. And I just love the way this demonstrates the fearlessness of that age.
Well, and I hope you don't misunderstand my annoyance with thinking it's a bad episode. It did what it was supposed to do. They were supposed to annoy me, you know, because they, you know, instead of Captain Waters, acting Captain Waters, contacting Starfleet Command like he should have done, letting the Starfleet know that his captain had died. He hadn't let anybody know that his captain was dead.
Right.
Did this guy have a family that may have needed to know that you know, all the commanding officers were dead? You know, Ramirez probably put Waters as acting captain so in the hopes that he would do the right thing and take the ship back to Starfleet and receive his actual orders.
Right. And that was a point I wanted to bring up just real quick, was towards the end, it did bring up that question for me personally. It sounds like for you as well. I was wondering, did that captain who walked them through repairs for 24 hours, who had his wits about him and said, do this while he had all this internal bleeding. But then when he turns over control of the ship to this cadet, did he forget or neglect to give him what his orders were? Did he say, you're captain now? Or did he say, you're captain now, I need you to lead them back to blah, 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 or carry out the mission? I feel like a captain that had the 24 hours and the wherewithal to oversee a ship being repaired would have also not neglected to give the cadet his orders once he's handing over control of the ship.
Well, yeah, and knowing that these are cadets on a navigational assignment, that's the way it started. Is they just happened to be in Dominion space when the war broke out. I feel like Waters probably fudged some of the details that he was telling Nog, making himself feel more important than he really was.
Yeah. I kind of agree with the idea that you said you were upset about it and that they accomplished the goal of making you upset, because I do think that was part of the goal. Captain Waters was like overconfident and a little arrogant, and too much so, and even kind of a self-prescribed authority to some degree or another, right? Because
that wasn't the only thing he self-prescribed, apparently. He was
Right.
pill popping too.
Yeah.
Right. And so those were the big issues in the story that I think Nog brought up a line in the episode where he's like, the Starfleet knows about this, right? And he's like, no, they don't know about that. We're, and it's like, well, why wouldn't Starfleet should have been notified that Captain Ramirez is dead and that this and all this stuff transpired, and that they're continuing the mission and they're going forward with whatever their objectives are. So once I heard that, I was like, okay, you guys are not Section 31, so you don't get to operate with that kind of impunity. You are cadets.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So,
get your ass home. Get home. I feel like somebody needs to give him a spanking. Like, get your ass home. The lights just came on outside. The street lights are on. Get your ass home.
That's basically what I felt. And also, to my understanding, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that if you are an ensign on this Defiant / DS9, you are essentially outranking a cadet. I don't care if he's a captain cadet.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
You've graduated already. You've already been enlisted. You're no longer in the ROTC program. You're in the military now. So,
but I don't think Nog is. I believe he's an acting ensign still.
No,
at this point.
No, he's been commissioned already.
Yeah,
that's why he's got the regular uniform on.
Yeah, but I think it's a field commission because he didn't go through 4 years. To my knowledge, I could be wrong.
My understanding is that he got promoted. According to Chief O'Brien, everyone who on Deep Space Nine thought he had earned the right to be promoted to ensign.
Mm-hmm. And so if he is fully an ensign and not just an acting ensign or a field commission of ensign, then he would, outrank every single one of those people on the ship.
Right, which was my problem with the idea that he would be enticed by getting this quote unquote title of chief engineer, which is not really weighted heavier than the title he already has on DS9. So that to me is where I have a problem with the story. It's not enough of an incentive for me to see Nog losing his perspective and his thought, his rational thinking, and being caught up in this whirlwind of, I've been promoted. It's like I don't see that being the motivation necessarily behind what Nog would be trying to accomplish. I think maybe more so that he has this specific set of knowledge that he's able to offer them, that he is the go-to guy that everybody has to look up to. I think that would be more of an entice for him, something more, incentivize him to kind of participate because he has all the answers and everybody's looking to him because he has more experience and knowledge. That to me is the thing that would get him on the hook more so than, hey, look, I'm chief engineer. Look at
it's the cool kids.
Yeah,
it's the cool kids. That's
he
the whole
had
syndrome
been
there.
dreaming about being a part of Red Squad since
And he mentioned being bullied. He mentioned also being bullied in Starfleet to some degree when he got there. So this was, like you say, Ryan, like an acceptance, like the cool kids, kind of being in that crowd. And maybe that, again, I think they could have even played on that a little bit more. Maybe Jake and Nog have a conversation like, when I was at the academy, this same group, they told me, I wasn't good enough, and now they need me. Now they need me, and
now they think I'm the best, and I proved myself to them. This is my moment. Yeah,
that would have been a great line to insert in this, a conversation between Jake and Nog. So at least Jake understands. Okay, I get what's going on. This is his cool time moment. This is his step up to the plate moment. As opposed to like, look, I'm in charge. I'm so special. I think it would have been more about those kind of underlying things. One, I know more than you guys. I'm clearly smarter than you. I studied better. And even though I wasn't accepted into this elite group, I have that level or more of knowledge because I obviously, you guys don't know the answers. Mm-hmm. So playing on that a little bit more would have been good for me, but I understand where they were trying to go with it though, as well. Mm-hmm. There was a lot to cram in.
And I did like seeing Nog struggle between knowing that what Captain Waters is telling him isn't right. What he's doing isn't right. And then wanting to, prove that he's just as good as Red Squad, but I also think it was a lack of confidence on Nog's part, knowing and not realizing that he had the talent, he has the experience, he has more wisdom than because of the people that he has learned from and worked under while on Deep Space Nine. And I think that learning to trust his instincts in this episode was a big lesson for him.
Yeah. I'd like to, something just kind of hit me, and it's about Jake. Jake is definitely like the conscience of this episode, right? Mm-hmm. He's not caught up in the whole, situation with Federation and Red Squad and the Dominion and all that kind of stuff. He's like the yin to Nog's yang. He's the conscience of the episode, where he knows, hey, this is wrong, or he's got the correct perspective because he's not caught up in all of this, right? So what I found what was interesting was Jake being kind of the conscience of the episode, and especially to Nog, because he's the outsider, right? He's not caught up in honor and duty and Red Squad and missions and all that. He's just a regular dude that's like, I don't know about all this shit, but we should go home. And my dad's pretty good, and he would probably go home right now. But what I realized was his role in this episode was very much, to me, like the character Lily on Star Trek First Contact, the movie First Contact. And just in a nutshell, we've got Captain Picard, who is trying to save the ship, and he's trying to battle the Borg, and he's got this civilian, Lily. And she's like, hey, man, what are you going to do now? And he's like, well, we're going to keep fighting the Borg. And she's like, all your officers think it's better for you to evacuate. So why don't you do that? And he's like, oh, you wouldn't understand. And she's basically like, I understand that if you have a chance to get out of here, you should get the out of here. Mm-hmm. And then and then they have like this argument where she's like, Jean-Luc, blow up the damn ship, and she's like yelling at him. He's like, no, and he destroys her. But she's got that perspective of like, I don't know about all this Starfleet stuff, but this is obviously the right answer. I'm not beholden to all these other rules. I'm just looking at it from a regular human, and this is what you should do. And of course, she ended up being right, as Jake was, as we all were when we were watching it. I know we were all thinking like, when you're watching it and they say, we did this and we did that, the captain's dead and we took over. I know we're all thinking, hey, if you go and make it home right now, flying through Dominion space and all this kind of stuff, you will be celebrated very highly. You don't need to do all this extra stuff. You've already proven your worth, like, relax.
Yeah, when they said they have to get 300 yards close to this huge ship that was like 100 times their size, it did sound like a suicide mission. And I think, that was another thing that I had slight problems with was I didn't really necessarily like Jake saying, hey, if my dad can't do it, then it can't be done. I think that's not the best way to convince somebody if you are trying to argue a case.
Right. That's almost a dare. That's all.
Well, especially with somebody as big of an ego as Waters has.
Right.
Who I thought was cast beautifully. That guy was a perfect, you could just see he's the perfect blend of, he thinks he's saving the world. He thinks he's got, but from the outside point of view, we're just like, dude, snap out of it. You're just a 23-year-old guy that's in over his head, but doesn't realize it yet.
Or doesn't want to admit it to himself because, he's Red Squad and he could do anything, It was like a cult.
It was like a cult.
And they all drank the Kool-Aid,
And once again, I think if Jake's going to make a convincing, compelling argument in that moment to the kind of character that he knows he's dealing with in this moment, you're dealing with a kind of an egomaniacal person who's very self-centered. You have to cleverly play with the language of it so that it doesn't appear like a challenge. Like, I dare you to do it almost.
It's a great point.
It has to appeal to his own arrogance. So you have to put it in a phrase it in a way that he is actually doing the smart and right and valiant thing by choosing this option. And so that he will be uplifted even more. You placate towards his ego in that moment and not try to trump his ego and challenge it with saying, hey, if my dad can't do it, it can't be done. That may be true, but it's not a convincing argument in that moment, I think.
Yeah, and maybe that is to highlight Jake's own youth as well, and Jake's lack of wisdom and experience with talking people down as well. So Jake was right in what he was saying. He just didn't have the words or the vocabulary or the knowledge of knowing how to convince somebody like Waters to change his mind.
Captain Sisko would have, though, because he would have just said, I don't care, Ensign. Go to the brig. And Jake's like, hey, man, you guys, let's talk about this.
Well,
I told you.
Yeah. Oh,
and
hang on. Sorry, Melissa. Let's jump to the, I almost said the bridge, but let's jump to the break and then we'll get right back to what it was that you were saying. On the other side, stick around. We'll be right back on the Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule with, of course, Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
This is 2 weeks in a row that we get to see Cirroc's angry face, too. First, he was possessed by Zool and the paw race. And Malissa Longo is here, of course. Finally, I feel like we had, Melissa, I feel like you were with us for like 12 out of 13 episodes at one point. And then we got like 12 out of 13 episodes without you, where you were just
I was getting busy. Really sad.
Yeah. We were used to it, right, Cirroc?
You're so nice.
Okay, it's funny, just really quickly, when you said that, I thought about the outfit that I'm wearing in that picture behind you. And that is the same outfit from the Paw Wraith episode, if I'm not mistaken.
I was thinking the same thing.
And I'm superstitious.
Yeah.
If I got possessed in an outfit and literally almost died in and face off of good and evil, I'm not wearing that again. That's going to the back of
Here's an even more interesting
now that you are about to be blown up.
What if it was the same day? What if you're like, all right, anyway, I got to get out of these clothes, and Nog's like, no, we got to go. The ship's waiting. He's like, but I just got zapped in this. I just worms. Okay. Anyway, real quick, the trivioids, here they come. There's a problem with Quark's drink replicator. Quark is in love with Dax. Nog and Jake are taking a trip to Ferenginar, theoretically. Captain Ramirez left Cadet Tim Waters in charge of the Valiant. The Valiant's first taste of battle was a Cardassian battlecruiser near El Gatark. That is a toughie. Joseph Sisko calls Luna the Moon, and the Jem'Hadar ship's primary support braces are made of vivarium. It was just funny when they said, they're like, I saw the Jem'Hadar ship's primary support braces are made of vivarium. And they're all like, we're like, well, you going to tell us what? Anyway, so Melissa, you were making a point right before the break.
Oh, I was just going to say the first clue that Waters was too big for his britches and the head bigger than the size of the Valiant was that he referred to Captain Sisko as Benjamin Sisko instead of referring to him as Captain Sisko, somebody who outranked him, you know, and was leading the charge in the Dominion War. Like they were buddies with this captain he had never met. And I was like, that's a little too familiar for your position.
However, Jake Sisko also called him Benjamin Sisko, if I remember correctly.
But that's because Jake is his son. The two are not equitable.
Right. I'm just saying maybe that just helps to identify the guy more, you know, like just say, you know Benjamin Sisko.
Sisko is.
We do.
Well, and the people of
they should know. They
Valiant would know.
Yeah.
If he's
but I more had like one, I was going to piggyback of what you were saying about him having this arrogance in the big head. I kind of feel like he wasn't the only one, because number one, the number one that you said is the Talon agent, Ryan. She was pretty like a hard ass about her. She took a very hard stance on her, even more so in some ways. She was like, you know,
I don't remember anybody inviting you to the bridge. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Feisty. Exactly. The captain just kind of gave a look. He's like, go handle this.
Yeah, she was the bulldog.
She was.
That he let loose whenever, again, cult. They were all in this Red Squad cult. And which makes me question that Vulcan over Ryan's shoulder. Why didn't he say any of this was illogical?
There were a couple Vulcans at the very least that I saw. There were two. There was a man and a woman. Maybe more, but those were the two that I saw. Well, I mean, Vulcans, if anything, if you were to say what are Vulcans' biggest what's the word I'm looking for? Like the chinks in their armor, you know, like their faults, their foibles, is they are perceived to be arrogant or overly confident or narrow-minded sometimes. So they might fit right into something like this. But usually, yes, Vulcans are much more the voice of reason when people are getting, you know, flying half-cocked on emotions, which is what this is based on, is people getting a little too ahead of themselves and a little too emotional and you know, kind of, you know, just puffing their chest out and thinking they can take on the world. More often than not, a Vulcan, you're right, is going to be the one that's going to be like, our chances of success are very low right now.
And that would have also been another opportunity, I think, for them to insert a level of peer pressure there, where maybe the Vulcan does want to say something, but you know, the feeling or the peer pressure of the entire group, this whole cult mentality, forces him to suppress that. We could have seen a little bit of that too, so that we know some of those people are coerced and don't really want to follow along with the game plan.
Yeah, I did notice, however, when they were starting to chant Red Squad, he was the only one that didn't.
Oh, that's interesting. Good catch.
Oh. I was like, so
he was just like this. He's like,
yeah.
He just kept that same look that he has behind you.
That's an interesting detail. Good eye.
Yeah, and that's another lesson that could be learned is sometimes biting your tongue and not speaking up in certain moments could cost you in this way that it cost everybody their lives. So just going along with the crowd sometimes and not speaking up your mind and saying, "Hey, this isn't right," or "No, I don't want to be. Count me out. I'll take one of those shuttle pods and be out of here."
Well, tell that to Jake Sisko, who spoke his mind and got tossed in the brig.
Yeah. Not a good place to be during a battle scene, by the way, because you're just bouncing around inside of a little cell. I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
The life of a reporter, though, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what I did like about this episode back in the day. Like what stuck out to me is what I liked about this was just the backstory, was just the idea that there was, usually when they give us, the backstory or the information, from before, you're just like, okay, we get it. You gotta explain that at Rakantha province on Bajor something happened, or here's the science behind the story. But in this case, the story behind the episode was what was most interesting to me, in that you had this, it's basically a training exercise for this elite group. So they've kind of got like the advanced training to where they're supposed to circumnavigate the entire Federation, which is way above what a cadet should be doing. But they're like, the officers are like, these guys get the advanced training. And then something happens, all the officers die. And now what you have is kind of a mild form of Lord of the Flies, right? Where a power structure, a command structure has been established by the people before them. But still, you basically have a group of kids that were not fully prepared for this. They are more than any other kids that are 20 years old or 19 years old, but still not ready for this. And it was just a really interesting, backstory for me. And it was just like a really interesting, plot. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's not knocking the episode. It's doing its job of, highlighting these situations.
Yeah.
And
it lists these responses from
exactly.
Us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to get frustrated and go, Nog, what are you doing?
I wanted to hit him over the head when he started chanting Red Squad. There should have been a point where he just kind of slaps him side the head, like, "What the hell's wrong with you, man? You're over there, Red Squad." I'm looking like, really? You just got here, yes?
And you even said, "I don't even know who you are anymore."
Well, and then again, that shows it illustrates his lack of confidence, because just moments before, he's questioning this mission that Waters is proposing. He's like, "This isn't a good idea." He's questioning it, which he should have questioned, but then he starts questioning himself and wondering if he's betraying the uniform by questioning the captain, but he's not. The captain's betraying his crew by asking them to go on a suicide mission.
Yeah, I wanted to hit Nog upside the head. There was a moment where I wanted to just slap some reality into him and say, "Wake up, man! We were headed to Ferenginar, and now all of a sudden we got a mission that we don't know how long we're going to be on. You didn't send word back to Defiant. You didn't call my dad and say, hey, we just got beamed aboard a whole other ship. We're over here. We're going to be doing this for 2 weeks." It's very irresponsible.
Great.
And if my kid does that, I'd be pissed if my kid just went from going to this plan to now having a whole nother plan, and I didn't get informed on it or filled in on it. That would be upsetting to me. And for Nog too. Nog has to tell his dad and his family what he's doing. Why would he just go off and not tell his father or, alert his family about change of plans? I'm not going to come back from Ferenginar. I'm going to be gone on this Valiant mission for the next week. I don't know how long it's going to be. I'll let you know. There's some kind of responsibility from both of them. I thought, Jake had a little bit but it should have been even more so. Like he should have slapped the hell out of Nog and said, "Wake up, bro! Let's get back to the station." Or Captain Waters, send word for my dad and tell him I'm here, and you see what he says when you get on the phone.
Oh,
with
he
him.
wouldn't do it. He'd be like, he'll know when we get back. But yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Jake could have done something to the point of, hey, send word to my dad. And if he says no, say, I just want to let you know, I respect your authority, dude, bro. However, if you don't tell my dad and contact my dad right now when I'm asking you to, I can guarantee you he will be very upset with you when you return. And not on a just on a personal level for hijacking his son, but in what you're doing, I can guarantee you there will be hell to pay when you return. By the way, he's the emissary.
Captain for real. Yeah.
Well,
you will never be a captain.
And then and Jake could have used that as a bargaining chip with Nog because Nog respects Benjamin so much and looks up to him so much.
Yep. He could tell Nog, hey, you're doing a great job impressing my dad. This is not the way, dude.
Right.
I can guarantee you he will not be on board with your decision making right now. However, if you send an encrypted code message right back to him right now, I bet you he'll be so proud. He might even promote you.
He might promote, exactly. But there was also another issue there. I think, when friends or when you're in a relationship with somebody and you get into an argument and you say something that is actually really hurtful and you realize how hurtful it is and you kind of regret saying it because you're like, man, I shouldn't have said that because it was too hurtful.
Gets up on stage and slaps you.
Yeah, well, not that particular incident, but in general.
Oh my gosh.
One of the things that I found hurtful when Nog says to me or to Jake, you never put on this uniform. You don't know anything about sacrifice, honor, and duty. And to me, that's a hurtful statement, just in general, because number one, you can know about sacrifice, honor, and duty without putting on a uniform, You can understand it, you can sympathize it, and you can sympathize with those who do put on a uniform and make those sacrifices and show that kind of honor and duty. But you don't necessarily have to put it on to understand it, to comprehend it, to know about what it's like, right? Because we all make sacrifices in life, especially in Jake's case, having lost his mother in a battle, in a warlike situation. That's like, how could you not know about sacrifice if that's the kind of loss that you've taken to maintain honor and duty, right? To your commitment to duty. So yeah, I think those kinds of things affect entire families. So when somebody's in the military, it's not just the person that's in the military that's enlisted. It's also their family. It's their spouse. It's their children. It's their mother and father. They're all enlisted together, and they all understand that sacrifice, honor, and duty together.
Right.
And to add to that, that's a really good point. And to add to that, that's why, to bring it down to the world of sports, you have, it's true. You have sports commentators all day long. You have ESPN, you have SportsCenter, you have whatever, right? There's kind of this unwritten rule that the people that have played the sports and are commentating don't pull the old "you haven't laced them up" thing to discredit what the other person is saying. Because what you have are sports analysts, you have experts. Some of them have played baseball before, some haven't. Some are, pro golfers. Some are failed pro golfers that never quite made it. But what they never say, what they really shouldn't say, and every once in a while it kind of sneaks out, but they can't try to invalidate somebody's point of view by saying, well, you've never laced them up, as in you've never, tied on the, unless you've laced them up, you don't understand. Well, this person's job is to analyze these things. And they, so anyway, what it is it's a qualifier, right? And what what Nog was doing right there was a qualifier, just kind of saying, oh, you've never, done this. so your opinion doesn't matter. And the fact that Jake has never put on a uniform means that his opinion should matter so much more, because he is in a unique perspective. Out of everybody there, he's the only one that can think like a civilian. And in this case, it might have been, a better perspective. So they really should have listened to his opinion, I think.
Yeah. Well, and then
clearly.
Yeah, I'm really going out on a limb there, aren't I?
I think my last line was Dorian. He got everyone killed. Like what? Like you saying he was a great captain? Like he did get everybody killed. So I don't
great
know
lines by Nog at the end there, where he says, he might have, he was maybe he was a great man. He might have even been a hero, but he was a bad captain. And it's like, man, if that was shorter, that's a perfect title, for this thing, because it's true. It just makes you think, like, if this guy went through the ranks and ended up being a captain with that kind of mentality, he had a lot of great attributes and a lot of great qualities, but at the end of the day, he was a bad captain. He was a great speaker and motivator. He knew how to get people to rally behind him, but that's only part of it. His judgment seemed to not be sound. His judgment seemed to be very clouded.
No, he had a wonderful way with words and convincing other people that his way was the right way. But again, he lacked the wisdom of knowing of realizing he doesn't have all of the answers.
I think that's more. See, I don't even know necessarily that he was a bad captain, except that he made a bad decision in that moment. I mean, because he did salvage the ship, he did continue on in some ways. So, and I think that's how fragile being a bad and good captain are. Like the line is so thin between Picard blowing up the whole ship, or Sisko getting the whole Dominion fleet to come through the wormhole, and then a magical Bajoran alien wipes out that Dominion fleet. Mm-hmm. Now, if that fleet makes it through, then he dies and everybody dies, and they're one against 1,000 ships like they were at that point. So the fragility of moments in those kinds of cases could go either way. The pendulum can swing either way. They could have been successful at destroying that ship and gone home, mission accomplished, and saved, 1 million people in some sector of the world. I just think it is fragile. I think not listening to other people and not making the best decision, sure, that's a bad decision in that moment. I don't know what he has done in other instances to preserve their life. And
8 months.
But I do have to point out that he would have been a better captain, or shown that he would have been a better captain, had he taken the Valiant back to Federation space when his commanding officers and crewmen had died. Because ultimately, from day one, during that 8 months, he put every crew member's life at risk by continuing on to fluff his own ego.
Right. And he also, in this instance, if he were a good captain, in my opinion, and his crew was on board with whatever he was doing, however it was, if they were on board and he was leading that ship, I would not invite two outsiders, who Jake and Nog are in this instance, right? They're essentially outsiders being assimilated into their crew. I wouldn't do that. I would say, let me drop these guys off first, right? We'll get them to a safe location, send for help for them or whatever, or take one of these shuttle pods and go back to wherever you're coming from, because I have a mission to accomplish. I wouldn't make you come along on my mission. Well, especially in Jake's case, he's essentially kidnapping Jake, because Nog is the only person who's actually volunteering to be on board.
Well, and Jake has never put on the uniform, so he hasn't taken any oaths to participate in all of these actions. He has no obligation to this crew.
Right. So he's being essentially kidnapped to some degree or another, and that's another bad decision that he's made. So overall, was he a bad captain? I can't say for sure. Was he arrogant? Yes. Did he make bad decisions? Yes. And did those bad decisions eventually result in the death of this particular crew? Yes. But I do also like the way Nog said, tell that story too. Like, tell the whole story.
Yes,
like,
that was really good.
Right? It's like there's going to be good parts of the story, and let the reader decide whether they think
just
he
like
was a
we
good
are,
captain
just
or,
like the viewer. That's kind of like a wink to the viewer saying, you decide. And Cirroc, what you're pointing out is something I hadn't thought about, which is we're just seeing him in this 1 day or 2 day span, this little microcosm of this episode. Fact of the matter is, he was probably pretty good for 8 months. I mean, there must have been something he was doing right for 8 months. He probably made a bunch of mistakes. That's why I think he was more of a naturally born leader, because he exhibited skills of a natural born leader that was not yet ready to be a Federation captain. Federation is one thing, captain is another thing. Natural born leader is it's an ability or a skill set that can lead into that. But you're right, I hadn't thought of the fact that 8 months is a pretty good track record. I mean, it's unlikely that he was making terrible mistakes for 8 months. And I just kept lucking out of them throughout.
Not to mention the good thing that he did to start this episode was save Jake and Nog's life from this Jem'Hadar attack. So he literally do the right. He did the right thing. He's a good captain in that moment. Jake and Nog loved him in that moment.
That's true.
So there, he has redeeming qualities where he did save their life. But there's also that line too far. There's also that thing where you just keep going too far. You push your luck that much further. They already had discovered that ship. There was no need to. They had actually accomplished the mission that they initially set out to do.
Exactly.
The firing the photons and reconfiguring them to attack this ship's Valerium or whatever it was. That was the step farther beyond the mission objective that they had. That was him going over and above and making his own agenda.
He was intoxicated by success. Yeah. He was intoxicated by his previous success. With every success and every day they survived, his chest started coming out more. His judgment started being a little bit more skewed by confidence. His humility and big picture perspective started to wane. And so probably every day that passed, led him to be this person that really wasn't able to, make a sound decision on something like this, because they kept succeeding. He never knew failure. He only accomplished things. And that's, again, that just goes back to fearlessness. Yes, Melissa, we know you hate him. We get it.
I don't hate him.
Well,
I don't hate him. I don't hate him. I think that he probably could have been a better captain than he was had he given the opportunity to continue his education. But I still think he's a bad captain because of the initial choices that he made, leading them into the 8 months, and this unnecessary choice that he made after completing a mission that was assigned to somebody else.
Right.
It was not his mission.
Which he wasn't qualified to even carry out to begin with.
Exactly.
So I see your point, but I also do want to say hell of a good casting, because I too felt that this guy had really nailed the captain kind of role down as a young kind of fledgling or kind of young up and coming wannabe captain. I thought he played that role pretty well and had some kind of Chris Pine-y type of feel to his performance a little bit.
Right. Not to judge a book by its cover, but I felt the same way. I was immediately like, okay, this is a guy that's overly confident. Like they cast the perfect guy. As soon as you see him, you're like, okay, this guy, I don't know about this guy.
He had that demeanor where he's like, I'm in charge, and things go how I say, and that's it because I'm so special. And he wore that very well. So I think it was excellent casting as far as getting somebody that we would kind of respect but also hate a little bit. Uh-oh. I see some
Speaking
coming
of
out.
hate and respect, we only have a minute left, but it's time for the nitpick number ones. Okay. Nog got promoted to lieutenant commander, but he only had one full pip and one half pip. That's lieutenant junior grade. I know for a fact, I checked a bunch of times from different angles. He had the rank of lieutenant junior grade on his pips, but they said lieutenant commander over and over again.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I feel like I
Okay.
had noticed that before too, because when I saw it just now, it's like, this feels familiar. Real quick, let's give a very special thanks to, you know it, Carmen, aka Skillet, TJ, Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill, Victor, Arucan, Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy, Yvette Blackmon, Eve England out in Wales, Dr. Marie Segal, Titus Mohler, Tim Baum, Darlena Marie, John Mann, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Joe Balsarati, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Ryan Galloway up in Canada, of course, Christopher Collins, Erica Strom, Amy Renee Haynes, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. We will be right back with the free-for-all, everybody, so stick around and always remember the 7th rule.
And welcome back to the 7th Rules Free-for-All with Cirroc Lofton,
Hello.
and your other host, Ryan T. Husk, and we have Homer Freezy, who's doing something weird with his hands, and Eve England out in Wales, and Anil Pulat, who is not in Turkey right now, and Tim Baum out in the beautiful Fiji place that he's always is, and the lovely Erica Strom out in the UK. And then Dr. Marie Segal, if you're nasty. And I'm Melissa Longo.
If you're wholesome.
Hi.
All right.
Yay.
Well done.
Very good. So everybody, check this out. There are a couple things we've got to jump on before we move on to anything else. First and foremost, Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score. I know, we saved it.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I'm going to guess this one at a 7.9.
Wow.
7.9, that's my guess.
Very
Just
nice.
under an 8.
Does anybody have a guess that doesn't know already what this is on IMDb? Eve's thinking.
Yeah, I kind of think it's going to be low because I suspect lots of people don't like this one. But
Why do you suspect?
Well, because I used to see this one as the one with the annoying cadets in it, but it's my view having rewatched it. But so I think it might be lower, maybe 7.7.
7.7? Okay,
Yeah.
not too low.
It's kind of a ship of Wesley's.
You watch your mouth. How dare you?
That was the original title.
USS Wesley.
A fistful of Wesleys.
A fistful of Wesleys.
Anybody else have any guesses?
Did you say a fistful of Wesley?
It's like a fistful of Dana's. Wait, here's my question. Oh, wait, sorry. I'll wait.
Yeah. Okay, so the answer is, it sounds like nobody else has any guesses. The answer is actually pretty low.
7.2.
6.9.
Wow.
Attend this.
It's because Melissa voted 300 times.
We heard about that.
Oh my gosh.
The other quick thing is the NAMs, the non-appearance mentions. Everybody at home, if somebody gets mentioned but isn't actually credited with an appearance, we like to, give them a little shout out. There were two.
That's one of my favorite people.
there were 2 non-appearance mentions. Do you know what they are?
Grand nigga Zach.
Chief O'Brien, too.
It's definitely Chief O'Brien.
Oh, yes, there are 3. That's right.
Grand
there are
Nega
3.
Zek? I didn't even catch that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why.
He wants
Oh,
to
yeah.
interview
the reason
In
for
the
this
beginning.
season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then there are more than
Brian
2.
Negus.
Yeah,
There are
I
3.
promised the Federation News Service an interview with the Negus. That
Right.
was-
Yes.
It's
You
so
are correct.
then-
Very good.
And then for your sticklers out there like me, he actually did say Zek a little bit later.
Mm-hmm. He did.
Hmm. Very good.
Also,
So I accept it.
Now, Chief
Oh.
O'Brien
Yeah.
is credited every episode, but that's true. Yeah, he was not
Yeah.
in this
Joseph
episode.
Sisko
at
was
all.
also mentioned.
Mm.
He said,
Ah.
my grandfather
And-
usually calls them lunar schooners. That's what he said.
Yep.
Right.
And yes,
So
Yes.
also
Oh,
at the beginning, Rom.
Nice.
You guys got them all. Very
So
good.
how many is that? That's a lot.
That's 4.
That's 4.
Nice.
Zek, I just missed.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of Chief O'Brien.
Oh,
Who's the
anytime I hear Grand Nick.
That's 5, right?
4.
fifth? Rom,
Because Zek was
Sis-
twice.
Rom, Joseph, Zek, and O'Brien. Who's the 5th?
And Rom.
Rom was
He
first.
said that.
Oh,
the
you started
first.
Rom.
Uh-huh.
We said wrong, yeah.
He just really likes maps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's count him twice.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
Make
so
up for Melissa's bad scoring on IMDb.
yeah,
I can't
What?
believe you brought the average
Dad,
down that much.
I
I know.
haven't
It's
even
ruthless.
scored it. Yes.
So, Anne-Marie, you said you had a question?
Oh yeah. So like, since they're all wearing actual uniforms and not cadet uniforms, did they all like go to the replicator and be like, "Oh my gosh, I got a field promotion"?
Those
Kinda-
are the cadet uniforms.
Then how come Nog wears a different cadet uniform?
Red. You know, they're like red, gold, blue.
But those
Wait,
are
but
cadet
that looks like
uniforms.
black and not gray. Oh, maybe
So I
they just
think
have a
Nog
shitty
was
illustrator.
commissioned.
Nog
and
was
they're
Yeah, but,
still
like,
at-
He's the only
and
one.
they're still
at
with
Starfleet.
I guess they
officer's
all looked like
uniform.
Well, Anne-Marie, in fairness, I lightened this picture behind me. So on the screen,
Okay.
the way Deep Space
Yeah.
Nine is shot, Deep Space Nine is always shot super dark. So you're right that this uniform looked much darker on screen. I actually
and I
lightened
didn't
it.
see cargo pants or cargo pockets.
Yeah, they're in Bermuda shorts.
Hmm.
They're on Zoom.
Interesting. But oh my gosh, Jake Sisko's so good in this episode. I love it. I love those scenes so much.
Tell us all about it,
He's all
Anne-Marie.
right.
Don't you think that like cafeteria scene where they're talking about the moon, it just is so like illustrative of what life must be like on those colonies, and you really feel like you're there and like wish you could go. It sounds beautiful, and you see how fragile emotions are and high emotions are running on the ship. And I can't imagine any other way to do it in such a quick time, like amount of time. It's just amazing. And I just love seeing Jake like with his own stuff going on in life, and with like his new job. It's just wonderful. And he's so wise. You see so much growth.
You're a little choppy, Anne-Marie. We're going to have to come back to you to get
Really?
more of that. Yeah.
little
You
bit,
could only
yeah.
tell the actor that played Jake Sisko how you feel.
I know.
No, I heard what you said. Thank you.
Only.
Anne-Marie. That was, I mean,
So good.
there were good moments. There were some that were not so good that I was a little critical of. I thought I was too braggadocious about my dad and his title. Like when he says you're Benjamin Sisko's son, I was like, it kind of was like, yeah,
That's
right.
I felt like it was so.
But that's
Sometimes you meet kids who are like kids of famous people, and that's like, for example, Ivanka Trump went to Penn with me, and like if you met her, she'd like kind of say the same thing as if we didn't know who her dad was, and that kind of thing. Oh, I feel like you handled that so gracefully. Like, of course, you have to say something when they say it to you.
I felt I was bragging about it too much. Like, yeah, that's my dad. That's right. I am.
Sweet, you love him. Yeah.
And then the other time that I thought was a little over the top was when he says, if he can't do it, then it can't be done. Like if my dad can't do it, then it can't. It's like it's a little bit over the top. braggadocious to me that I don't think it's necessary. Because if he has this worldwide reputation and if he's known for who he is, then I don't have to throw extra on it. It was like I can literally, you don't have to say Michael Jordan. If Michael Jordan can't dunk the ball, then you know who my dad is.
But
He's
it was
Michael
the only way
Jordan.
to get these kids to cooperate with you. They seem to like not respect you otherwise, which already was one problem.
That was a little bit of an issue to me. Yeah, because I think Jake would have been like, call my dad, like tell him that we just almost died and tell him that to come get me or send for me or whatever, or work out a plan for me to get back to DS9. I think that would have been his priority, because they even said, yeah, all I care about is Jake Sisko and whether or not he's going to be killed by a bunch of radical fanatics. That was one of his lines. So if you really are worried about being killed by a bunch of radical fanatics, like I felt like that urgency to get back home and be in contact with your DS9 people would be even that much more heightened.
But do you think that you would have been allowed to make a call like that, especially
I don't think so.
Especially since they cut off communications with Starfleet Command and haven't talked to anyone about anybody's deaths or anything like that, and they're coming down on you for having a personal conversation with one of the crew people. Like, you're not allowed to talk about normal things.
So I think it could have been, that would have been a nice scene to write in. Like, hey, I want to call my dad, and then they deny me that. That way, it's a point of contention for me and Nog, saying, "Hey, look, these guys don't have the best intentions in mind. They won't even, give me a phone call.
Right.
That kind of a thing." So he could have argued that point harder about why this didn't feel right to him. You know what I mean? Like, what are they doing here? So, I think they could have kind of moved it in that direction just a little bit, because it would have been my natural instinct to try to get a hold of my dad if we had just blown up whatever ship we were riding on and just got beamed aboard some other ship. You'd be like, "Oh, can I make hey, let me use the phone and make a call real quick." It's kind of a normal thing.
Yeah, and you would think it would have been Nog's first instinct too, to call his commanding officer as well.
Right.
Yeah, it would have created some nice tension.
About us.
Nice tension between Jake and Nog, with Jake saying, "Hey, dude, we really got to call my dad," and Nog being like, I don't know, man. These guys made me a lieutenant commander.
Yeah, let's just get this finished.
Yeah, but
just one mission. Just give us, a couple of days. They already think we went to Ferenginar, and that kind of conversation could have transpired between Jake and Nog. Kind of a little bit.
Kind of. But I could see Nog wanting to contact Captain Sisko because he has far more respect and experience with Sisko than he does this crew.
Exactly.
Well, there's a lot more to this cookie that needs to be crumbled. I don't know what that means, but I think Tim Baum knows what it means. What are your thoughts on this episode?
Oh, there's so many. First of all, something that Cirroc mentioned is having a father who's beloved. It's like, my father was very beloved, and everybody would say, he's such a good man. And my response as a kid was like, yeah, try living with the SOB. So there was a trade-off. But, when I first watched this episode, I just didn't like it. It was a bunch of kids. It was like not part of the canon. But when I watched it again today, a couple things came out. The first was Cirroc's with Aron, where Aron goes, "I'm suddenly, a lieutenant commander," and Jake's like going, "Well, put that on your tombstone."
Yeah.
Very good.
And my parents grew up during World War II, and they actually played Army. It was like a game. And I grew up during Vietnam, and we played Army with the kids in the neighborhood. And it's like, this was kind of like a lot of young kids. It was like, okay, we've been through simulations. We've been through scenarios, we're ready. It's like, no, you're not. War sucks. And I think eventually, they got that. And then at the very end, when Aron goes up to the chief, it's like, oh, he was a great man, great captain. No, he may have been a good man, but he sucked as a captain. He got everybody killed. And,
Tim, have you known people like
now.
that? Have you known people like that in the military where you're like, this is a great guy or great lady, but they're not a good captain? Oh, wait, maybe you're not allowed to say that while we're recording, actually.
No. The one thing, when we were under fire and the enemy was eliminated, some of the young kids were celebrating. And I pretty much took one of them out with the butt of my rifle. You don't celebrate a kill. You did your job. Let's move on. But to cheer and shout, no, that's not what this is about. That's why I drink a lot. Anyway, but no, the final scene was actually one of the best parts of it. The kid he wanted to be a great captain, but he was on speed and he put everybody in unnecessary risk just because, this is my mission. No, that's not your mission anymore. You need to get these kids home safe. And he didn't. Mm-hmm. So,
and he created that mission at the end there. That was not even his mission. That was a mission that he said, hey, what do you say, guys? Let's do one more thing. Win one for the Gipper.
And exactly. And the kids were going okay, we'll do this, realizing that, we're all going to die. And
it's some Lord of the Flies shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
I put in my notes that it was like these guys are almost borderline playing house. They're like LARPing. For those of you that don't know what LARPing is, it's live action role play. But it's like,
it's true.
They weren't fully in the real world. They were kind of 1 foot in and 1 foot out, but they were kind of, playing house. They were kind of pretending to play Starfleet while the adults are away, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's like I said.
Also it's the fault of those crappy instructors too. That guy tried to overthrow, the Federation in Homeward, Paradise Lost, sent them away.
But like I said, it's like as a kid in the 60s and 70s, we played Army because we could see on TV what's going on in Vietnam, not realizing what war is actually like. But it was almost like a game to us. And in this episode, it was almost like a game to kids that were on the starship. It's like, we're the red team. We're the elite. We've lost everybody that's older than us, so we're going to carry on and, we're going to do small strikes and then it's...
Tim, sorry, anyway. I know I got a lot of questions for you, but you're a military guy here. I was guessing that when that captain that had the frame of mind for 24 hours to walk them through repairs and do all these things before he said, all right, kid, you're in charge now. Wouldn't he have then told the kid, and here is your mission? Would he just leave the kid in charge and say, okay, go do whatever? Or would he say, okay, you're in charge now, and this is your mission. You go home, or you do this, or these are your orders?
I don't know if he'd say, these are your orders. It would, because this is a different situation, because they're isolated. It's like, fix it, we'll move on. No other conversation.
Interesting. All right. Well, Erica, your thoughts on this episode?
Obsession.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Team 10 on 10 on IMDb.
Yeah. I didn't fully enjoy it. It was just so immature, trying to be grown-ups. It didn't work. So, bit life experience from or dead.
Have you seen the episode a lot of times or just once or twice?
Once or twice. It wasn't really my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when he was taking drugs, I thought, is he eating Tic Tacs?
It's pronounced TikTok.
Well, actually, like, that's the other crazy thing when people, like, when you start getting, like, that crazy dependent on drugs, like, occasionally, like, a movie or something will get it right, where people stop even using water because you're just sneaking it at work and you get so good at, like taking it just dry. And it kind of felt like they included that little detail in a really good way. But but actually it does look like that in real life too. Like, it looks like they start knocking them back like Tic Tacs, and just like, that's already worrisome.
I was going to say, I was a kid of the 60s, 70s as well. And, probably I had my few dab hands here and there at things. And, wrapping magic mushrooms up in loo roll and taking them out. Terrible. But, I never ever had it where it looked like a little jar of mints.
Yeah, well,
Just
that's
weird.
because magic mushrooms taste like hell.
Oh, they do.
I've heard.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
On Wikipedia, it says that.
Yeah.
But, Erica, what you were saying about obsession, I will agree with that. I think there was a high level of obsession. And what really demonstrated that for me, at one point, the whole crew was dead except for Nog and one other guy, right?
Yeah.
and the other guy's like, I can get more power. I can divert the shit. And like, Nog looks like, no, it's over. We failed. Like hello.
Obsession.
Like, what
Yeah.
more? What more do you need to like wake up? Like, everybody's dead. It's just, when we clearly are literally looking at we're outmatched, outgunned. It's not going to work. So wake up, snap out of it. And I felt like there was this kind of obsession that the crew had about trying to be the best, and we can. Yes, we can. We're smarter than everybody. We're the elite. We're the elite. We're the chosen. We're the chosen best. Red Squad.
Yeah.
Red Squad. That
And
kind
at
of.
their age, they're so impressionable.
Yeah. Which is why it was like a cult.
Yeah,
It
very much.
was a Starfleet cult.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of cults, Eve England, how? Just kidding.
I'd be an Eve's cult any day.
Did you? Oh, you're wearing a Defiant shirt. That's cool.
And I got my Defiant earrings too.
Very nice. What do you think of this episode?
Yes, like I said, when I just remember it as being not a very good episode, but actually rewatching it today, got a bit more out of it this time. And I think, knowing where we end up with Nog, and actually having had a few Jake episodes recently where you're sort of seeing his character develop. So I found it quite poignant. And I was thinking it was quite interesting because I was seeing parallels to the 2009 Star Trek, where you've got all these cadets who just get taken out of their normal environment and they're thrust into, being proper officers on a real ship. But obviously, the Valiant crew, their ending wasn't as good as the one of the Enterprise, with Captain Kirk being a much better captain, clearly. But I thought that was just a really interesting concept to show that, and actually it was a really good way of showing the dangers, I suppose, of the cult-like obsession with, or how young people can end up being so confident, overly confident, how they can just be so misguided about what they can and can't do, and without that sort of level of supervision, how that can easily just end in tragedy. And it was just so sad watching that speech at the end when he's saying, look around, this isn't going to happen again. So yeah, no shit, you're all going to be dead because this is just ridiculous. And you just think, and like I said, I was getting quite frustrated watching, thinking these guys are just so irritating. But that's why when you think about war and how young people are when they fight these horrible wars. It was actually, I don't know, I just saw it from a different perspective, especially in the current climate with everything going on, that you think, this could easily be quite real, and you could have teams of people who find themselves in this sort of situation. So I got much more out of it than I was expecting when I sat down to watch it, and really did like the way that they had Nog and Jake's relationship to pull all of that out. So you had Jake there as the sort of thinking, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. But Nog really was, Starfleet is his life, and this is, his dream to be this officer. And that's all he could see. And he was completely blinded by all of that rhetoric that the captain was, giving to him and the rest of the crew. And I just find it really sad. But I think the companion also talks about how Aron actually really liked this episode because it was quite an important episode for him. And in terms of the final part of his arc, what we see in the next few episodes. So I don't know, Melissa, whether you'd ever spoken to Aron, whether you discussed this episode before, because I thought that was quite interesting, what the companion's saying.
Yeah, it's right on the money. He said that that exact thing to me. He's like, I actually really like this episode, even though a lot of people don't, because it is an important episode for Nog's growth. And he's so right. It is an important episode for his growth as far as experience and as far as wisdom. And it's a little more growing up for Nog and Jake and their relationship. So, their
relationship. How cool is it that Jake and Nog are now having a kind of an adult relationship? Like before, the stuff they bickered over was kids stuff. Now they're fighting over life and death situations. It's like a totally different dynamic now. It's really cool. Anil here, have you seen this episode recently, or do you remember it well?
Yeah, I just watched it yesterday. Nice. And the first time I watched it was a little bit rough because the cadets are pretty annoying. Like you're like, ah! And then Nog joins them and you're like, no, I love Nog. Why are you doing this? And you get really frustrated. But I think what would have tweaked that is if there was something that we could understand with the cadets, like if they were stuck behind enemy lines, or the captain said, it was his dying wish that they do this, or just some motivation, because I felt like I was just against the cadets the whole time. Like I was pure Jake mode, right? Like I was like, these guys are crazy and there's nothing to like. And then the more I thought about it with Nog, I was like, well, he's Ferengi. So he still has that ambition, right? Like he's an ambitious guy, we know. But if you think about how like Rom is very also ambitious and smart and moving his way up, Quark too, they just do it in different ways. And I felt like in this episode, he was like, I see an opportunity, I'm going to take it, right? That's the Ferengi in him coming out. So I on this rewatch, I was like, I kind of understand his motivation more, and I understood where Nog was coming from. I just wish they had tweaked that with the cadets. But I love the Jake glares. Like the glares were
he practiced his side eye in that episode.
That was Discovery level side eye.
Yeah, I did a side eye in there.
And you're like that. And you're like, oh, he's so laid back normally, but then you're like, yeah. He's a Sisko, now I see the father-son connection. You're like, So it was pretty. I like those scenes a lot.
Well,
thank you, Anil.
Even more than Captain Sisko, I think Joseph Sisko has championship side eye. When his son Benjamin's talking, and he's like, "Man, what are you talking?" Like when he's had to tell him what's up a couple times. It definitely runs in the family, and then over to Homer, who has never once given anybody side eye. He's always been just
edge
direct eye.
Yeah, so I agree, Cirroc. I agree with what you had said about some of the things that Jake said, and I think that they could have done things a little bit differently as far as the scenes go. I would have loved to have not seen him like arrested at Phaser Point, but they actually tried to take him without a weapon, and then there would be some sort of a fight scene. And then he goes into the brig.
Is this because you just did a class on stage?
Yeah, he wants to see a tussle.
No, but look, I'm looking, I'm like, Jake Sisko is the biggest guy on that ship. And so, yes, they're afraid of him, but yet he's a reporter. So I don't understand why they have two guys with phasers pointed at his head. I think they should have done that a little differently. And I think they would have had time to do that because the B story, so far as I can tell, is a replicator at Quark's that Dax fixes. I just don't. That doesn't fit, and maybe there was something else.
Right.
But
and there was no resolution to that, right, Homer? Like they brought the thing where they're like, where Quark suddenly says, "Oh, I'm in love with Dax," and then they just never went back to it.
Well, no, it's Odo who points it out, but I think it's just a seed that they were laying for what is to come.
Mm-hmm. If you're ever without a booze, then you're going to be angry.
And then lastly, the last thing I'll add, I'm just curious what people's thoughts are, the scene with Nog and the Red Squadron lapel pin. Actually, I have one more thing after this as to, was that his? Was that hers? And then how did Nog get to be so very good at just looking at people and knowing that they're dead?
Yes, I took a note of that too. When
they're
all like on the floor and
sense.
they're like, "Let's get out of here," and he goes, and she's like, "No, let's say." He's like, "They're all dead." Like, how do you know? They're like still twitching. They're like, "Hey, I broke my arm." He's like, "Fuck them."
He can hear their pulse with his ears.
Well, he can hear that they're not breathing.
Yeah.
He heard that they've evacuated their bowels.
Okay.
Ew.
Right. You're all overthinking this.
True.
Okay. So there's bodies on the ground. Go with it.
I think also this episode is like that. It's such a great example of like that extreme, how like extreme, weird, like grooming in a professional setting, like what happened at Starfleet Academy can be like, it does put you in a weird mindset. Like it's rampant in surgery. Like the second you say you're going into surgery, you get this like craziness drilled into you. Like you're the best doctors. You're the best this, you're the best this. And it's just like, it makes for such a toxic culture. And it also makes for like kind of weirdos, like other interns in the hospital. It's kind of like, you're like, well, how are you treating other people like this? We're no better than them. Like, first of all, like all the other interns basically have the exact same training as you. We just finished med school. And it also leads to like, sometimes you'd see like, it like sort of, makes the culture so that if you ask questions when you don't know things, because that's safe, that's like almost people will say like, oh, this girl doesn't know anything. And it's sort of like looked down at, and a couple like attendings, would be like, oh, she's not confident at all. When like, okay, well, you never wrapped like a 300-pound amputee's leg before, and it's important. To know what you're doing, like you should ask. You shouldn't just be like, I'll make it up as I go along. Like this is their recovery. So this was such a great example of that, and how these like Red Squad people are groomed and they never ask questions, and they're all like, they have this false confidence, and it's just so unhealthy, and it's also like very hard to erase once it seeds. So it makes this episode so believable.
And Marie, when you say that people are groomed and they're never asked questions, because that was one of the things I thought was unusual in the episode when Jake reveals that he found out that the captain is taking this medication, right? I didn't see any of the other Red Squadron people saying, "What? Seriously?" Like,
well, first of all, probably like half of them were too. But yeah, they're like,
but like,
oh, well,
there was not enough of a reaction there, right? Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
It's like, hey, the guy that's been leading us is on heroin or whatever. People would be like, "What? Are you serious?" No, there's no way.
And it's like an unhealthy response for like hierarchy where, I don't know, it all is so unhealthy.
Like everybody was just too tight-lipped about it, just like, oh yeah, so, and I'm like,
it's super believable. But
that's how so many people in high positions get away with so much because people don't speak up. Hello, Harvey Weinstein. I mean, it's just one example.
It just like
speaks
to
know
how, and it just speaks to like how good Ben Sisko is, that he instills to Jake Sisko, because it's not like Ben Sisko wasn't probably like Red Squad material if that had existed. It's just, I think the sign of like a great leader is someone who instills in other people, like, know when things seem off and ask questions.
Well, and he showed
this
that
episode makes me love him so much more.
Yeah, but he also showed that in was it Paradise Lost, when he challenged his former commander, or the admiral, saying what you're doing is wrong, and he was in charge of Wedge Squad. So it's kind of hard not to believe that kind of culture would still be bred into these cadets.
Yeah, plus like they already had such problems with Nova Squad in TNG. Like, stop having these special squads.
Right. This was a definite parallel to Nova Squadron, I think it was. Yeah. That's about all the time we have, unless Cirroc has something to say.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was just going to say, at the end when they finally cut to the Defiant crew and you see Sisko and everybody, and they're like, Captain, we're picking up a life signs, a shuttle escape pod. The contrast of tone between the grown-ups and the kids was like night and day. You can see, like, you can see Sisko like, no, we have to check that out. Set a course. It was very methodical. It was very like, you could see the maturity there amongst the crew at that level versus these kids running around just like, hey, what do we do next? Hey, Valerium,
Totally.
Yeah, good point. Definite contrast there. Also want to point out very quickly, Homer's got a really cool shirt on. You can get that on our Teespring store. Check that in the link in the description box below. Those are the Ferengi Eyes shirt, and also a very cool little combat
Lakers edition.
Yeah.
Lakers edition. All right.
Lakers colors. And then for this episode, I went with the Lower Decks com badge.
Very nice. Be careful. That thing might come to life. You never know.
Yep.
Very smart.
All right. So we do have to run. Very special thanks, of course, to Homer, Anil, Eve, Erica, Tim, Anne-Marie, for Malissa, myself, Cirroc, and Red Squad's own Aron Eisenberg. Thank you very much. And always remember the 7th rule.